how Empherias' most powerful woman fell. Sofia Hopkins was a juggernaut of Empheri politics for decades, but in a matter of years, she would fall as rapidly as she grew. By 2463, the Socialists had won either a plurality or majority in the last 8 consecutive general elections. While the foundations were rocky in the 2441 and 2445 general elections, and the fracturing of the Socialist Party into both the PSP in light red and the ASP in purple led to extensive coalition negotiations, socialist parties still remained the dominant ideology in the politics of Empherias. Sofia Hopkins, being one of the longest-serving prime ministers, rose to prominence in the late 2440s and would guide the PSP into consistent election victories well into the 2460s. So, who is Sofia Hopkins? Born in 2424, she was elected to Parliament at the young age of 21 in the 2445 general election. She was the first transgender woman to become a member of Parliament, having transitioned during her childhood. Having been an activist in her youth, she was identified as a great oratory speaker and was a proponent for expanding transport routes, landing her the position of Minister of Transport under Prime Minister Caitlin Roberts. She took this position to her advantage, quickly befriending key cabinet members because of her frequent attendance and meetings in the Treasury. Following the Roberts resignation in 2447, Hopkins would become the youngest prime minister in over 100 years, aged 23. She won a leadership election against other major figures thanks to many endorsements from senior MPs. And she was able to beat runner-up Lucas Knight because of his controversy amongst the party elite for his views on pan-Alaxianism. However, Hopkins was still relatively young and did make serious blunders in her campaign. Knight, while unpopular with the parliamentary party, was able to consolidate the power and his stance on pan-Claricianism, splitting the party in two, the PSP under Hopkins and the ASP under Knight. In her first general election in 2448, Hopkins won only 105 seats out of the possible 600. However, she developed, becoming deputy to Knight during the coalition. She was involved in many negotiations while Empherias joined the High Kingdoms of Alaxia. By the way, you can check the full video on this topic on the description. She improved her skills even more and changed her image from one of youthful energy to one of serious reform and a need to fix things. She was a representative for Empherias during the signing of a new constitution of the High Kingdoms in 2452, and she managed to portray her pan-Alaxianism U-turn positively and maturely, and many ASP members came to support her. With the Socialist Party united once again, she returned to her position as Prime Minister, with a seat count of 413 seats out of 600, a supermajority. With the divisive issue of joining the High Kingdoms behind her, a massive approval and popularity, and a supermajority in Parliament, she set out on her major reforms throughout the 2450s. But how did she tarnish this reputation? The 2463 general election saw the PSP win 367 seats out of a possible 600. This was down 20 from the last election, and down nearly 50 from the start of her tenure a decade prior, but still a decent majority. Throughout the past decade, she had massively strengthened the power of the trade unions, argued in the federal courts against mandatory privatization of some businesses, invested billions into the creation and upkeep of vital public transport links, increased the number of government-owned railways tenfold, invested in mental health and transgender support infrastructure, improved public education quality, and oversaw the construction of new green infrastructure and nuclear power. The government was still marred by scandal, however, and with every new decision, the opposition Liberal Party saw more and more ways to criticize the government. Running out of steam and frustrated by the Liberals' constant attacks, Hopkins introduced a new policy in 2467 that would see the changes to the education system to introduce what the opposition called socialist propaganda. The Minister of Education, who had not been told, resigned in protest, a major blow to the government, and the policy was quickly dropped. By 2468, Hopkins would marry the Prime Minister of Azieri Bordeaux, Conley Giari, after rumors of them dating had been circulating for months. Critics of the government described this as a huge security breach in Empherias, with confidential secrets being possibly given to heads of state of foreign countries. Furthermore, Hopkins began taking large amounts of time as leave, spending them in Azieri. For example, her Chancellor of the Exchequer, Melanie Monroe, stood in for 3 consecutive months while Hopkins was abroad. Monroe was essentially working as a Chancellor and the Prime Minister full-time in her absence. After a very exhausting week in May, Monroe collapsed in Parliament and was taken to the hospital for a few days. Hopkins was seen as inconsiderate for putting Monroe in such an unfortunate situation. The 2468 general election was held during the crisis and saw the PSP lose 100 seats and be reduced to a minority government. After 2 months, the opposition Liberal Party went to the Supreme Court of the High Kingdoms of Alaxia and ordered that Hopkins will be impeached as Prime Minister due to her security concerns. The courts issued a ruling that they did not want to forcibly overthrow an elected chamber of a devolved parliament. But they did transfer the power of Prime Minister in all but name to Melanie Monroe. Between 2468 and 2470, Melanie Monroe was a de facto Prime Minister, trying to stabilize the government which had been suffering from various corruption scandals. Hopkins officially resigned on the 17th of October 2470, ending her 17-year tenure, although she had since fell from power years ago. Many believe that throughout the final years she may have been mentally unstable from long-term stress. Whatever the reason, her actions both propelled the party to new heights and left the socialists on a path to its demise, which would come within the next few years. Find out the rest of the story next time.